Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. October 24, 1942. 2200 hours. In the suffocating darkness of the Solomon Islands, Private Robert Young Deere of the 164th Infantry Regiment checks his M1 Garand rifle one final time. His unit had arrived on the island just 11 days earlier, becoming the first U.S. Army formation to engage in offensive operations against the Japanese. Now, positioned alongside Marines, still armed with bolt-action Springfield rifles, the soldiers of the 164th grip their semi-automatic weapons, 8 rounds loaded in each en-bloc clip. Through the oppressive humidity and the cacophony of nocturnal insects comes a sound that freezes the blood of every American soldier. Thousands of Japanese troops beginning their charge, screaming banzai and totsugeki at the top of their lungs. Among the attacking force, Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto of the 29th Infantry Regiment leads his platoon forward. His Type 38 Arisaka rifle, with its exceptionally long 31.4-inch barrel, proves unwieldy in the dense undergrowth. The 5-round internal magazine has been loaded with 6.5 by 50mm Arisaka rounds. Each one requires him to work the bolt action up, back, forward, down. What happens in the next 12 hours of savage combat will demonstrate why American infantry possessed an overwhelming advantage in firepower that the Japanese never anticipated. The muzzle flashes begin. The night erupts into chaos. Private First Class James Cass of Company M, 164th Infantry, squeezes his trigger. Once, the rifle fires, automatically cycles. He squeezes again and again, 8 times before the distinctive metallic ping announces the clip has ejected. 3 seconds later, he slams another clip into the receiver. 8 more rounds, ready. Beside him, a Marine with a Springfield fires once, works his bolt manually, fires again. By the time he chambers his 3rd round, Cass has already fired 16. The reality of modern warfare reveals itself in fire and blood. 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute from the M1 Garand, 15 to 20 from the bolt-action Arisaka. The technological gap between semi-automatic and bolt-action operation would prove as decisive as any tactical doctrine, revealing how industrial innovation and mass production could determine the outcome of infantry combat in the world's first truly modern war. Lieutenant Yamamoto advances through the killing zone. He fires once, works his bolt. The 2nd round chambers. Before he can aim again, American bullets find him. Around him, his men fall, most with full or nearly full magazines cut down before they could effectively return fire. The wall of lead cannot be overcome by courage alone. The M1 Garand emerged from the mind of Canadian-American designer John Cantius Garand, who began work at Springfield Armory in 1919. After 17 years of development, testing, and refinement, the U.S. Army officially adopted his design on January 9, 1936, making America the first nation to issue a semi-automatic rifle as standard equipment to its infantry forces. The genius of Garand's design lay in its gas-operated rotating bolt system. A small portion of propellant gas was tapped from a port near the muzzle, driving an operating rod that cycled the action automatically. Each pull of the trigger fired 1 round, with gas pressure automatically ejecting the spent case and chambering the next round, without any manual intervention from the shooter. The rifle fired the powerful 30-06 Springfield cartridge, launching a 150-grain projectile at 2,850 feet per second, generating 2,656 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. The 8-round en-bloc clip inserted from above into the fixed magazine could be reloaded in under 3 seconds by a practiced rifleman. A trained soldier could accurately fire between 40 and 50 aimed shots per minute, compared to the 15 to 20 rounds per minute achievable with a bolt-action rifle. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, Japanese forces carried rifles whose lineage traced back to 1897. The Arisaka rifles, named after Colonel Nariakira Arisaka, came in two primary variants by World War II. The Type 38, adopted in 1905, fired the 6.5 by 50 mm cartridge. The Type 99, introduced in 1939, used the more powerful 7.7 by 58 mm round. Both were bolt-action rifles with 5-round internal magazines, loaded via stripper clips. The Type 38's exceptional 31.4-inch barrel made it one of the longest infantry rifles ever fielded, contributing to excellent long-range accuracy but proving extremely cumbersome in jungle combat. After each shot, the soldier had to manually cycle the bolt through 4 distinct movements, rotating the bolt handle upward, pulling it fully rearward, pushing it forward, then rotating down to lock. This process broke the shooter's firing position and required 2 to 3 seconds even for well-trained soldiers. 2 philosophies of warfare embodied in steel and wood. American doctrine emphasized firepower, industrial mass production, and technological superiority. Japanese doctrine revered warrior spirit, precision marksmanship, and bayonet fighting. The Pacific War would test which philosophy could survive contact with reality. Between 1936 and 1945, American factories produced approximately 5.4 million M1 Garand rifles. Japan manufactured over 6 million Arisaka rifles total, but never achieved the production consistency or semi-automatic capability that defined modern infantry combat. The 164th Infantry Regiment had brought something to Guadalcanal that the Marines desperately wanted: M1 Garand rifles. The Marines, still armed primarily with M1903 Springfield bolt-action rifles, watched with a mixture of envy and skepticism as the Army soldiers unloaded their semi-automatic weapons on October 13, 1942. 11 days later, during the climactic battle for Henderson Field, the advantages became undeniably clear. The Japanese attack begins at 04:30 hours. Thousands of soldiers from the 29th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Division Sendai, emerge from the jungle. Their officers have assured them that American soldiers are soft, that Japanese warrior spirit will overcome material advantages. They have been told that 1 Japanese soldier equals 10 Americans. They charge into a wall of fire that shatters this illusion instantly. Private First Class James Cass grips his Garand. The first wave of Japanese infantry appears through the pre-dawn darkness, barely visible except for the glint of bayonets. He aims, fires. The rifle cycles automatically. He fires again and again. 8 rounds, downrange in fewer than 10 seconds. The clip ejects with its distinctive ping. He reloads in 3 seconds. 8 more rounds. Around him, his fellow soldiers of the 164th create a continuous roar of semi-automatic fire. Each man functions like a machine gun section. Squeeze, boom, squeeze, boom, 8 times before reloading. No working a bolt, no breaking sight picture, just sustained, devastating firepower. Staff Sergeant Mitchell Page, a Marine armed with a machine gun, fights alongside the Army soldiers. He witnesses their firepower firsthand, watches Japanese attackers crumple under the volume of accurate fire. The Garands speak with a voice the Marines have never heard before. A continuous thunder rather than the sporadic crack of bolt-action Springfields. Japanese bodies stack up in front of positions held by the 164th. Many are killed with full or nearly full magazines in their Arisaka rifles, cut down before they could fire more than once or twice. The mathematical disparity reveals itself in corpses. For every round a Japanese soldier manages to fire while working his bolt action, American soldiers fire 4 or 5. Colonel Bryant Moore, commanding the 164th, will later report that his men expended over 250,000 rounds of 30-06 ammunition in the two-day battle. The expenditure reflects not waste but capability. The M1 Garand's ability to deliver effective fire at fleeting targets, to suppress enemy positions, to create zones where human flesh cannot survive. By dawn on October 25th, the Japanese offensive has shattered against American firepower. Over 700 Japanese soldiers lie dead in front of American lines. The 164th has discovered what will become a fundamental truth of Pacific combat. Semi-automatic fire creates killing fields that courage alone cannot cross. Marine Private Robert Leckie, who will later write the memoir Helmet for My Pillow, observes the Army troops in action during the Henderson Field battle. His words capture the shock of witnessing semi-automatic firepower for the first time. We thought they were green, these dog faces with their new-fangled rifles. But when the Japs charged, those Garands spoke with a voice we'd never heard before. It was like a continuous roar, not the sporadic crack of our Springfields. The psychological impact on American forces is immediate and profound. Soldiers who had trained with the M1 Garand suddenly understand why their instructors emphasized its advantages. Private First Class Eugene Sledge, who will carry his Garand through Cape Gloucester and Peleliu, later writes about the weapon's effect on morale. That Garand was the most reliable piece of equipment we had. Knowing you could put 8 rounds down range as fast as you could pull the trigger, it made you feel invincible. Corporal James Russell recalls the confidence the rifle inspired. When the Japs charged, you didn't panic. You just started shooting, kept shooting, until they stopped coming, or you heard that ping telling you to reload. Each American rifleman possessed the firepower of 3 men with bolt-action weapons, and they knew it. Across no man's land, Japanese survivors experience a very different revelation. Sergeant Masao Watanabe of the 29th Infantry Regiment survives the October offensive at Guadalcanal. In his post-war memoir, discovered in Japanese military archives, he writes with brutal honesty, "We were told the Americans were soft, that our Yamato spirit would overcome their material advantages. Our officers assured us that 1 Japanese soldier was worth 10 Americans. But when we charged their lines that October night, it was like running into a wall of lead. Every American soldier seemed to have an automatic weapon," Watanabe continues. "Our Arisaka rifles, which we operated the same way our fathers had in the Russo-Japanese War, felt like antiques. We would fire once, work the bolt while taking cover, then fire again. In that same time, the Americans had already fired 4 or 5 rounds. Lieutenant Hiroshi Takahashi of the 230th Infantry Regiment provides another perspective in a letter found on his body after battle. The American automatic rifles are devastating. Each soldier can fire as fast as our light machine guns. When we advance, it sounds like we are attacking a position defended entirely by machine guns. Our men fall before they can work their rifle bolts for a second shot. The reactions from both sides confirm the same terrible truth. American semi-automatic rifles have fundamentally changed infantry combat. Japanese tactics developed against Chinese forces, often armed with older weapons or limited ammunition, prove suicidal against American firepower. The banzai charge that scattered Chinese conscripts melts away before rifles that never seem to stop firing. Japanese military doctrine in 1942 rests on a foundation of spiritual superiority. The official infantry manual devotes 3 pages to rifle marksmanship, but 12 pages to spiritual preparation and bayonet fighting. This imbalance reflects deep-seated beliefs about the nature of warfare. beliefs forged in victory against Russia 4 decades earlier. The philosophy of Ichigeki Hisatsu, one shot, one kill, dominates Japanese marksmanship training. This principle reflects both spiritual beliefs about the warrior's focus and the practical limitation of bolt-action rifles. Japanese soldiers undergo extensive training at long range, with the Type 38's exceptional accuracy at distance considered a primary virtue. The Imperial Japanese Army's training manual states explicitly that the spirit of the attack must be the primary weapon of the infantry, that the rifle and bayonet are merely extensions of the warrior's will. This emphasis on spiritual factors over material ones creates a fatal contradiction when confronted with American firepower. Japanese training includes daily bayonet practice, kata-like movements that prepare soldiers for close combat. The Type 38's exceptional length, 50.3 inches overall with bayonet attached, makes it superior to most rifles in hand-to-hand fighting. Officers emphasize that Japanese soldiers will close with the enemy, that American troops will break when faced with cold steel and warrior determination. But Pacific combat rarely offers the clear long-range shots for which Japanese soldiers have trained. The jungle terrain of Guadalcanal, New Guinea, and other battlefields limits visibility to mere yards. The banzai charges that succeeded against poorly equipped Chinese forces or colonial troops meet devastating failure against semi-automatic rifle fire that creates impenetrable killing zones. American doctrine presents a stark contrast. Training emphasizes exploiting the M1 Garand's semi-automatic capability while maintaining accuracy. At Fort Benning, Camp Perry, and dozens of other training facilities, soldiers spend weeks mastering their rifles. The standard qualification course requires engaging targets from 100 to 500 yards, with emphasis on rapid target engagement and smooth trigger control. The Army's field manual specifies that soldiers should achieve a sustained rate of 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute in combat. Training emphasizes maintaining proper sight alignment between shots, since the semi-automatic action doesn't require breaking position. Soldiers learn to fire, observe impact, adjust, and re-engage quickly, taking full advantage of the M1's capability. Ammunition allocation for American training is generous by any standard. Basic trainees fire a minimum of 210 rounds during qualification, with additional ammunition for advanced training. Combat units preparing for deployment often fire thousands of rounds per soldier. This extensive live-fire training builds muscle memory and confidence that proves invaluable when bullets fly for real. The contradiction becomes clear in combat. Japanese spiritual training cannot overcome the arithmetic of firepower. American material superiority, backed by industrial production and realistic training, creates advantages that warrior spirit alone cannot bridge. Between 1936 and 1945, American factories produce approximately 5.4 million M1 Garand rifles. Springfield Armory leads production with 3.5 million rifles. Winchester Repeating Arms Company contributes 513,880 units. Peak production at Springfield Armory reaches 1,000 rifles per day by January 1944, with Winchester achieving 600 rifles daily at their height. This massive output ensures that virtually every American infantry soldier and Marine in the Pacific carries the semi-automatic rifle by mid-1943. The U.S. military's allocation system prioritizes combat units, with the Marine Corps receiving 22,000 M1 Garands per month in early 1943. American production maintains remarkably consistent quality throughout the war. Springfield Armory's quality control procedures reject any rifle that fails to group within 5 inches at 100 yards. Interchangeability of parts between rifles from different manufacturers is strictly enforced through detailed specifications and gauging requirements. A damaged M1 Garand can be repaired in the field using parts salvaged from other rifles, regardless of manufacturer. The finishes evolve for practicality rather than economy. The switch from blued steel to parkerizing improves corrosion resistance in tropical environments. Walnut stocks give way to birch and other hardwoods due to walnut shortages, but functionality never suffers. Late war simplifications include stamped trigger guards replacing milled ones, but these changes are thoroughly tested to ensure reliability. Japanese production presents a starkly different picture. From 1905 to 1945, Japan manufactures approximately 3 million Type 38 rifles across multiple arsenals, including Koishikawa, Kokura, Nagoya, and Mukden Arsenal in occupied Manchuria. Type 99 production, from 1939 to 1945, reaches roughly 3.5 million units manufactured at 9 different arsenals. Despite these substantial numbers, totaling over 6 million rifles, Japan never achieves the production rates necessary to fully modernize their infantry arms. Many second-line troops, garrison forces, and naval infantry units still carry Type 38 rifles at war's end, creating logistics complications with 2 different ammunition types in use. More tellingly, Japanese manufacturing quality deteriorates markedly as the war progresses. Early Type 99 rifles feature remarkable innovations, including chrome-lined barrels. Actually, the first military rifle with this feature, anti-aircraft sights with folding arms, dust covers to protect the action, and integral wire monopods. The finish is deep blue, and stocks are made from quality Japanese hardwood with precise inletting. By 1944, these refinements have vanished under production pressure and material shortages. Last-ditch rifles exhibit rough machining marks, simplified fixed rear sights, wooden butt plates replacing metal, and inferior wood with poor fitting. Some final production rifles lack even basic finishing, with visible tool marks on all metal surfaces. The chrome lining disappears as chromium becomes scarce. The imperial chrysanthemum marking becomes crudely stamped rather than precisely rolled. The industrial disparity reveals itself not just in quantity, but in sustained quality under wartime pressure. Contrasted competing military doctrines and tactical philosophies. This chapter should focus on the competing theories and strategies, American versus Japanese approaches to infantry tactics, training, philosophies, and how each side believed they would achieve victory. I need to show the contrast between their doctrines. American military theorists studying World War I's lessons conclude that firepower dominates modern battlefields. Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Force, witnesses the devastating effect of automatic weapons in France. In 1918, he specifically calls for development of a semi-automatic rifle, stating that the soldier who can deliver the most accurate fire in the shortest time will dominate the battlefield of the future. This philosophy drives American tactical doctrine throughout the Pacific War. Infantry squads are designed around the principle of fire and maneuver, with one element laying down suppressive fire while another advances. An American rifle squad of 12 men, armed with 10 M1 Garands and 2 Browning automatic rifles, can deliver 400 to 500 aimed rounds per minute in sustained fire. The volume of accurate semi-automatic fire allows American squads to effectively suppress enemy positions, keeping Japanese heads down while assault elements close with grenades and flamethrowers. Squad leaders are trained to coordinate fire, creating overlapping fields that deny enemy movement. The M1 Garand makes every rifleman a base of fire, capable of independent action while maintaining devastating firepower. American planners also emphasize logistics as a weapon system. The .30-06 Springfield cartridge used by the M1 Garand is already standard throughout the military for the M1903 Springfield rifle, M1917 Browning machine gun, M1919 Browning machine gun, and Browning automatic rifle. This commonality simplifies supply immensely. A single ammunition type serves rifles, automatic rifles, and machine guns. Ammunition production is staggering. Lake City Army Ammunition Plant alone produces 200 million rounds annually by 1943. Frankfurt Arsenal, Denver Ordnance Plant, and other facilities add hundreds of millions more. Quality control ensures consistent ballistics, with velocity variation less than 40 feet per second between lots. Japanese tactical theory follows a fundamentally different path. The Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905 creates institutional beliefs that prove catastrophic 4 decades later. Japanese infantry, armed with Type 30 and Type 35 Arisaka rifles, defeated Russian forces through superior training, discipline, and tactical innovation. The battles of Mukden and Port Arthur seem to validate the supremacy of Japanese warrior spirit over material factors. This success creates blindness to technological change. The Japanese military establishment, dominated by officers who revere the Russo-Japanese War as Japan's emergence as a great power, fails to recognize that warfare has fundamentally changed. World War I demonstrates the dominance of firepower over elan, but Japan, participated significantly in that conflict, fails to internalize its lessons. Japanese doctrine emphasizes night attacks and infiltration tactics to negate American firepower advantages. Training manuals instruct that daytime attacks invite annihilation, that Japanese forces must close with the enemy under cover of darkness. The theory suggests that in close combat, Japanese proficiency with bayonets will overcome American material superiority. But theory collapses when Japanese soldiers discover that American semi-automatic rifles function just as effectively in darkness, that muzzle flashes reveal American positions for only milliseconds before another volley erupts from a different location. The Japanese military recognizes the need for semi-automatic rifles years before Pearl Harbor. Development of indigenous designs begins in the 1930s, including the Type Co rifle designed by Kijiro Nambu and several gas-operated prototypes. Engineers at various arsenals experiment with semi-automatic mechanisms, studying foreign designs, conducting trials. The technical knowledge exists. The industrial capability, however, does not. Resources are directed toward aircraft, naval vessels, and other programs deemed more critical. The Japanese High Command believes that rifles, regardless of action type, represent secondary weapons compared to artillery, machine guns, and air power. This prioritization reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of infantry combat's nature in the Pacific Theater, where terrain often negates heavy weapons and reduces warfare to rifle-range encounters. More revealing is Japan's attempted copy of the M1 Garand itself. When American forces capture Yokosuka Naval Arsenal in 1945, they discover the Type 4 rifle program. Japanese engineers have reverse-engineered captured M1 Garands, modifying the design to use Japanese 7.7mm ammunition and feed from a 10-round internal magazine loaded with standard 5-round stripper clips. The Japanese have even improved certain aspects, adding a rubber recoil pad and incorporating a last-round bolt hold-open feature. The engineering is sound. The design, functional. Test rifles demonstrate reliability comparable to the American original. Yet, Japanese industry proves incapable of mass-producing this complex weapon. While they manufacture parts for approximately 250 rifles, only 100 to 125 are actually assembled into complete weapons. The Type 4 program reveals that Japanese military engineers fully understand the M1's advantages but lack the industrial infrastructure to replicate it. American production relies on advanced machine tools, precision gauging systems, and quality control procedures that Japanese industry cannot match under wartime conditions. The tolerance specifications required for reliable semi-automatic operation exceed Japanese manufacturing capabilities when producing weapons at scale. Beyond industrial limitations, Japanese military culture resists emphasizing material factors over spiritual ones. Colonel Masanobu Tsuji, a staff officer who serves in multiple theaters, writes after the war with remarkable candor, "We knew the Americans had superior weapons, but to acknowledge this openly would have destroyed troop morale. We had to maintain belief in spiritual superiority even as our soldiers were mowed down by American automatic weapons. This cultural resistance extends to tactical doctrine. Even as late as 1944, captured Japanese training documents continue emphasizing bayonet charges and night infiltration. A training manual issued to defenders of Saipan states that American automatic rifles create a sound like many machine guns firing, but instructs soldiers not to be discouraged by this volume of fire, to remember their spiritual superiority and press forward with determination. Spiritual superiority, however, cannot chamber the next round, cannot cycle the action, cannot overcome the fundamental mathematics of 40 rounds per minute versus 15. The deeper mystery is not why Japan never adapted, but why institutional blindness persisted, even as evidence of American firepower superiority mounted with each defeat. The pattern repeats across the Pacific with terrible consistency. Tarawa, November 1943. Marines armed with M1 Garand storm ashore against Japanese defenders whose Arisaka rifles cannot match American volume of fire. Despite fortified positions and fanatical resistance, Japanese forces inflict heavy casualties but cannot stop the American advance. The mathematical advantage of semi-automatic fire proves decisive even against prepared defenses. Kwajalein, February 1944. American forces again demonstrate that M1-equipped infantry can establish and hold beachheads against counterattacks. The firepower of semi-automatic rifles means smaller forces can hold larger perimeters, allowing rapid build-up for breakout operations. Japanese commanders, recognizing their firepower disadvantage, increasingly resort to nighttime banzai charges in desperate attempts to negate American advantages. Saipan, June 1944. The largest banzai charge of the Pacific War sees over 3,000 Japanese soldiers assault American lines in a pre-dawn attack on July 7th. Private First Class Harold Agerholm of the 4th Marine Division helps repel the massive assault with his M1 Garand. The continuous roar of semi-automatic fire creates killing zones that human courage alone cannot cross. Over 4,000 Japanese soldiers die in the attack. American casualties are significant but survivable. The difference is firepower. Peleliu, September 1944. Japanese forces have learned from earlier defeats. Instead of banzai charges, they defend from fortified positions, using caves and bunkers to protect themselves from American firepower. But even in defensive roles, the bolt-action Arisaka proves inferior. Marine Corporal R.V. Bergen recalls that when Americans spot enemy positions, they can saturate them with rifle fire. 4 or 5 Marines with Garands can put 40 rounds into a cave mouth in the time Japanese defenders fire 5 or 6 shots back. The implications extend beyond individual battles. American island hopping strategy relies on the ability to land forces, establish beachheads, and withstand counterattacks while building combat power ashore. The M1 Garand makes this strategy viable. Each landing force possesses overwhelming firepower advantage at the squad and platoon level. The crucial echelons where Pacific combat is actually decided. Japanese commanders increasingly recognize this reality. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, brilliant defender of Iwo Jima, writes in January 1945 that American automatic rifles are remarkable weapons, that each soldier possesses firepower equal to 3 or 4 Japanese riflemen. His defensive strategy avoids suicidal charges in favor of defense in depth, making Americans pay for every meter of ground from fortified positions. But even Kuribayashi's tactical brilliance cannot overcome American material superiority. Iwo Jima, February through March 1945, demonstrates that Japanese defensive tactics can prolong battles and increase American casualties, but cannot prevent eventual defeat. Marines armed with M1 Garands systematically reduce Japanese strong points, their semi-automatic fire suppressing enemy positions, while assault teams close with demolitions and flamethrowers. The implications are stark and undeniable. American firepower superiority, embodied in the M1 Garand, contributes directly to every American victory in the Pacific. Island after island falls, not because Japanese soldiers lack courage, but because they lack the industrial and technological means to match American firepower. Private First Class Eugene Sledge carries his M1 Garand through some of the Pacific War's worst fighting. At Cape Gloucester, in December 1943, he lands in torrential rain on New Britain. The conditions are horrific. Rain falling like waterfalls, mud sucking like quicksand. Yet his Garand keeps firing. In his memoir, With the Old Breed, Sledge writes with simple eloquence about the rifle that kept him alive. That Garand was the most reliable piece of equipment we had. In rain that came down like waterfalls, in mud that sucked at you like quicksand, that rifle kept firing. For American soldiers and Marines, the M1 Garand represents more than technological superiority, it represents survival. Marine Corporal James Russell expresses what thousands feel but cannot articulate. The M1 rifle was our best friend. In the chaos of close combat, being able to fire 8 times without working a bolt saved countless American lives. The human cost of technological disparity reveals itself in individual stories. Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto leads his platoon forward on that October night at Henderson Field. His Type 38 Arisaka, meticulously maintained, functions perfectly. He fires once, works his bolts smoothly, chambering the next round. Before he can fire again, American bullets find him. Found after battle, his rifle contains 3 unfired rounds. He managed only 2 shots while advancing 100 yards under concentrated fire from M1 Garands. Around him lie dozens of his soldiers, most with full or nearly full magazines. They were cut down before they could effectively return fire, not because they lacked courage or training, but because they were fighting with rifles designed for the previous war. Their families will receive notices stating they died honorably for the Emperor. The notices will not mention that they died because Japanese industry could not provide them with weapons equal to their enemies. Sergeant Masao Watanabe survives Guadalcanal but carries psychological scars deeper than any wound. In post-war interviews, he speaks quietly about watching friends die while working their rifle bolts, about the helplessness of facing American firepower with inadequate weapons. "We could not get close enough to use our bayonets," he recalls. "Our supposed advantage in spirit and close combat meant nothing when we were shot down 50 meters from their lines." On the American side, soldiers experience the confidence that superior weaponry provides. Staff Sergeant Mitchell Page, Medal of Honor recipient, fights alongside 164th Infantry soldiers at Henderson Field. He watches them unleash devastating fire against Japanese attackers. "Each man was like a machine gun section," he later recalls. The psychological advantage is immense. knowing your rifle can fire faster than the enemy can think. But there is weight in this advantage too. Private First Class Desmond Doss, the conscientious objector medic who will earn the Medal of Honor on Okinawa, describes American Garands providing covering fire while he rescues wounded men. The rifles were firing so fast it sounded like one continuous roar. Our boys could keep Japanese heads down while I went out for wounded. Without that firepower, he reflects, I never could have saved those men. The humanity of technological warfare lies not in abstract statistics, but in these individual moments. In lives saved and lives lost. In the terrible mathematics that determine who goes home and who does not. The numbers tell the final truth with brutal clarity. An M1 Garand firing 30-06 ammunition delivers 2,656 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. With a trained soldier firing 40 rounds per minute, this translates to 106,240 foot-pounds of energy delivered per minute. A bolt-action Type 99 Arisaka firing 7.7mm rounds delivers 2,300 foot-pounds per shot at a practical rate of 15 rounds per minute, totaling 34,500 foot-pounds per minute. Less than one-third the M1's energy output. The mathematics extend beyond individual weapons to squad and company level. An American rifle squad of 12 men, with 10 M1 Garands and 2 Browning automatic rifles, can deliver 400 to 500 aimed rounds per minute in sustained fire. A comparable Japanese squad, with Arisaka rifles, manages 150 to 180 rounds per minute, assuming well-trained soldiers achieving maximum bolt-action speed. At company level, the disparity becomes overwhelming. Company G, 164th Infantry Regiment, reports expending 30,000 rounds of 30-06 ammunition in one night of fighting at Henderson Field, an average of 150 rounds per man, while suffering only light casualties. The mathematics are inexorable. A Japanese battalion of 800 men conducting a banzai charge faces American companies capable of putting 8,000 aimed rounds downrange per minute. Even accounting for darkness, confusion, and fear, the volume of semi-automatic fire creates kill zones that human courage alone cannot overcome. U.S. Army ordnance tests, conducted at Aberdeen Proving Ground in 1940, quantify the M1's advantage under controlled conditions. Soldiers with M1 Garands consistently achieve 24 aimed shots per minute at 200 yards, with 90% hits on man-sized targets. Soldiers with M1903 Springfields, functionally identical to Arisaka operation, manage only 10 aimed shots with 85% accuracy. In rapid-fire scenarios, simulating response to sudden attack, M1-equipped soldiers engage 3 separate targets in the time bolt-action users engage 1. After 5 minutes of continuous firing, M1-equipped soldiers maintain 80% of their initial rate of fire, while bolt-action users drop to 60% due to fatigue from working the bolt. The revelation extends to ammunition effectiveness. The 30-06 Springfield's trajectory proves superior at typical Pacific combat distances. At 300 yards, an unusually long engagement distance in jungle warfare, the 30-06 drops 13.5 inches from line of sight while retaining 1,900 foot-pounds of energy, sufficient to penetrate multiple layers of jungle vegetation and still incapacitate enemy soldiers. The 6.5mm Arisaka, while dropping only 11 inches at the same range, retains only 1,100 foot-pounds of energy, often insufficient to penetrate cover. In the dense vegetation of Pacific battlefields, this difference proves critical. American bullets punch through palm fronds and undergrowth while maintaining lethality. Japanese bullets often lose effectiveness after penetrating even light cover. General George S. Patton's assessment of the M1 Garand as the greatest battle implement ever devised is not hyperbole but mathematical fact. The numbers prove it. The corpses confirm it. The revelation is simple and terrible. In modern war, rate of fire multiplied by accuracy equals survival. The distinctive ping of an ejecting en-bloc clip becomes the sound of American victory in the Pacific. From Guadalcanal, where the M1 Garand first proves its worth in Army hands, to Iwo Jima, where Marines use it to break Japanese strongpoints. From Cape Gloucester to Okinawa, that metallic ping announces that 8 enemy soldiers will never reach American lines, that another position has been suppressed, that another island moves closer to being secured. The sound carries meaning beyond its mechanical origin. For American soldiers and Marines, it signals time to reload, a 3-second vulnerability that training has made automatic. For Japanese soldiers, it becomes associated with death and defeat. Before reaching bayonet range, with comrades falling in waves before American firepower. Lieutenant General Harukichi Hyakutake, commanding the 17th Army on Guadalcanal, writes in November 1942 that enemy rifle fire has density and accuracy beyond expectations, that each American soldier appears armed with an automatic weapon. His report recommends emphasis on night operations to negate American firepower advantages. The sound of massed M1 fire has forced Japanese tactical doctrine to evolve around avoiding American strengths rather than confronting them directly. The Pacific War is won not by any single weapon or battle, but by the cumulative effect of American industrial might and technological superiority. The M1 Garand stands as perhaps the most visible symbol of this advantage at the individual soldier level. Every rifleman with an M1 possesses the firepower of 3 enemy soldiers, an advantage that no amount of spiritual training or warrior tradition can overcome. Against the M1's semi-automatic fire, the bolt-action Arisaka, for all its virtues of strength and accuracy, fights the last war with the last war's technology. The Arisaka action proves exceptionally strong in post-war testing, stronger even than the American Springfield, British Lee Enfield, or German Mauser actions. But this strength cannot overcome the fundamental limitation of manual bolt operation in an era of increasing firepower. Private Robert Young Deere survives Henderson Field. He will carry his M1 Garand through subsequent campaigns, will hear that distinctive ping hundreds of times more, will fire thousands of rounds in anger and training. In 1945, when victory comes, he will clean his rifle one final time before turning it in. The weapon that kept him alive, that gave him advantage over enemies equally brave and determined, returns to the arsenal. Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto does not survive to see dawn. On October 25, 1942, 38 Arisaka, with its exceptional accuracy and admirable construction, its smooth bolt action and strong receiver, could not overcome the wall of semi-automatic fire that met his attack. He died doing his duty, leading from the front, armed with a rifle that belonged to his father's war. The last word belongs not to courage or spirit, but to the mechanical precision of gas-operated semi-automatic fire. 8 rounds, 1 pull of the trigger each, before that distinctive ping announces it is time to reload and continue the fight. The sound of American industrial might, the sound of technological superiority, the sound of victory in the Pacific.